It is time to talk about one of the franchises that was so big, so massive really, when it started, that right now it is a bit weird to see how quiet the franchise has become, at least when it comes to having experienced massive stardom and then fading slightly away, but still maintaining the same quality and the same excitement. This is one of the franchises that influenced me, and I'm going to tell you why in this episode. So we are going to talk about the SideM franchise. Let's kick off this episode of Seiyuu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyuu Lounge, I am your host Vanessa, and today we are going to talk about the Idolmaster SideM franchise. This is a big one because this franchise has been around since 2014, but let's say music-focused one only started in 2015 itself. So this is a bit weird because there was a game in 2014, then the music started in some capacity, but yeah, let's say the official start of the franchise itself was in 2015. They are amazing, but also quite intimidating. So if you are just finding this franchise, you are going to be quite intimidated because the franchise has 16 groups, which is a lot to follow. It has over 300 songs in, I would say, even more, or maybe double that, because they have been releasing music for 10 years. They had games, smartphone games. They had an anime series or adaptation, which actually was pretty good, I would say. Out of all the 2D music projects getting an anime adaptation, after Idolish 7, the Idolmaster SideM is the best one, because it focuses a lot on the bonds of each group and how the groups came to be, but it only explains about the main groups in the franchise, not all. So we're not going to get information about the 16 groups in the franchise, because even there's a recent one that joined in. So it doesn't have that information, but has cameos from some of the members of other groups that were not explored in the first season. It also has a sort of a chibi anime adaptation as well. It has a web radio show, it has manga and a rhythm game as well, but the rhythm game, let me tell you, was really poor. All their attempts to create a rhythm game were poor, and the story was not even fully voiced in the game, so that's a missed opportunity. But then again, when you are on Lantis's side, because they are signed to Lantis, they are the publisher, or let's say Bandai Namco is the publisher, and for the music it is Lantis, which is part of Bandai Namco. There's a lot of Seiyuu in this project and a lot of groups, so I feel that when they were thinking maybe we should add voice to the game, they started thinking about the fees that they would have to pay to every single one of those Seiyuu, and thought, it's not worth it. At least for the money that the game is going to make, to pay all these 52, I believe they are 52 Seiyuu, it's insane. The franchise has 16 groups. They have a lot of music for you to check. This can be intimidating as heck. Honestly, it is. And I feel many people finding them right now may feel intimidated, especially because you have that pressure from other fans to actually get into every single group instead of just picking one group or two that you like and stick with them and enjoy the franchise all the same, but still focusing more on 2 or 3 specific groups that you like. For me, when it comes to the franchise itself, I'm a massive fan of Sam, Legenders, and Dramatic Stars. Legenders, I really like their vibe. They have a really good dynamic. I like Junkasama's voice a lot. One of the sweetest baritones I've ever heard among my Seiyuu. He knows how to sing and he dances pretty well, let me tell you. Their choreographies, usually Kasama does a lot of amazing work when it comes to the dancing. So I do like Legenders a lot. They have a sort of a pop meets rock sound, which works pretty well for me. And then we have Dramatic Stars. They are basically a by-the-book pop group. Really excited, really energetic, really intense, really made to hype you up, and they really hype me up. They have a really good sound. I believe this group will be the favorite for many people, I think. This was actually the first time that I listened to Shugo Nakamura singing. this was around the same time, or it was a year earlier from him joining the Tsuki Pro franchise, so I didn't know much about him, but I was getting quite familiar with his voice when I found this franchise around the same time that I found the Tsuki Pro franchise. So the SideM was already 1 or 2 years in activity when I found them. So this was the very first time that I came across Shugo Nakamura's voice, and I loved it a whole lot. And to know that he is the face of this franchise when no one knew who he was, and knowing that this franchise actually chose the voices based on the fact that all the seiyuu here know how to sing and play at least one instrument, it's quite amazing. So first of all, we have so many talented seiyuu right here. Right off the bat, most, if not all, know how to sing and play an instrument. Regardless if it is a guitar, vibes, drums, bass, or anything else in between, they know how to play, which is kind of awesome. We also have Altessimo with classical music, which is not really a thing in 2D music. I have yet to find another group that has that classical music vibe. Regal is one thing, but classical music is another. They don't have a regal theme, they have a classical theme that matches their music, which I find quite interesting. Their music is not really my thing, but I really like the whole idea behind them. But they also have groups that have a Japanese style, they have groups with really pumped up rock songs, they have others that sound a bit more regal, for example Bite. They have happy-go-lucky type of groups, they have really any kind of thing that you may want. And even a band which is High Joker, and they play live with their instruments. That was the very first time that I saw Shoichiba playing guitar and I was mesmerized. Also that I saw Yusuke Shirai playing the drums and I was with my mouth ajar. I didn't know that he knew how to play the drums so well. So yeah, this franchise has a lot of quality when it comes to the groups, I would say. I'm not diving into detail about every single group because they have 16 groups and I know that I usually tend to spend at least 5 minutes talking about each group, so this episode would never end. But yeah, they are amazing. When it comes to the anime series, as I said before, the anime was, at least the one that was not the chibi, the main anime series was really solid. I feel that they actually explained the story pretty well. It is something that usually is not well done when it comes to 2D music projects coming forward with an anime series or an adaptation of some sort. Usually you miss the mark, people don't understand the story, sometimes you are starting in media res, so people don't even know how the groups came together. So in this case they are showing how the groups came together and how especially Dramatic Stars came together, because they are the main group, they are the faces of this franchise. I loved the comedy in this franchise, I love to see the bonds getting formed and also listen to the music, the new music that was premiered in this series. One thing about the music is that the Idolmaster SideM franchise does have one album that was actually a bestseller for them. They have an album that was #1 on Oricon. So this is a franchise that has a record of some sort. Not many 2D music franchises can say, or mixed media franchises can say that they have at least one #1 on Oricon's charts. Of course, not every single franchise is called Hypnosis Mic because they have most of their first CDs all in #1. But this franchise, actually, the SideM franchise, they did have one #1 on Oricon's charts because of the anime series. What is weird is that after that #1, and with all the hype about the anime series, the music, the live shows that are always sold out, and even the game, the franchise started to fade away. Weird as heck. Still to this date, there is no explanation whatsoever what happened between the anime series and the following months in which the franchise couldn't basically sell anything. They were barely selling anything. And they were struggling a lot when it came to the sales of their CDs, which was a massive difference from what they had just done with that #1 and what they were doing prior to the anime series. So I don't know what happened in there. There is nothing documented about that. What happened in that phase around 2016 is still a mystery. How the franchise actually ended up fading away from that high is really something that still makes no sense to me. But then again, we need to understand something, is that fame and popularity may come out of nowhere. The problem is you don't know how to sustain it, how to make it consistent across time. And maybe the SideM franchise was not expecting that to happen, to become so popular to the point that they were #1 on Oricon, that they didn't know how to manage that and quickly faded away. But they faded away in a way that not even what they were doing before they could match. I feel that in some capacity, my instincts say that they changed people behind the scenes that were in charge of the series or the franchise, in charge of planning the releases, in charge of organizing the music, because something really weird went on, and it was not because of the quality of the music basically lowering down or anything in there, because the quality was still there. They were actually doing pretty good stuff, but it feels like the marketing was so badly done after that #1 that they no longer could recover from that. Then the game was actually closed. Then they created another one. It was bad, really bad, and people were complaining, and things started to snowball in a way that the franchise has a lot of good music and a lot of talented voice actors. A good thing about this franchise is that most of the voice actors, when they joined the franchise, they were not popular. Most of them were even rookies. They were debuting. And to see that the franchise grew to a point that most of the Seiyuu actually became popular, they went on to be really massive in other projects as well. And then they got that #1 with that CD linked to the anime series, and all of a sudden they faded away, which sounds weird because you would ride that high for as long as possible if you were behind the marketing department for this franchise. You would pump out basically a lot of music in the following months to ensure that the high could be ridden for longer. But the franchise actually didn't do that, and they faded away out of nowhere. I still don't understand this, and of course I did a lot of suppositions here. Nothing that I said in these short 2-3 minutes is not confirmed in any way, so it is kind of weird what happened, and still to this day I don't understand it. I know that some fans also have the same feeling that they don't understand what happened to this franchise, and midway through them struggling, they brought a different group to this franchise, Class First, and they introduced that new group, which makes them 16. They were initially 15, or let's say they were initially 3, and then they built up from that to 15, and then they got a 16th group. They brought a new group, and people were thinking, but we need to address another thing, which is the fact that the music is not selling, and people are no longer excited. Of course, in Japan, they still sell out the shows and everything, but the music is no longer selling that much. People are not that excited. There is no season 2 to the anime when they hinted at that. So it is a bit weird what they have right now, and I feel that this is something to do with the management behind the scenes, not so much with the project itself, because the quality is still there, and I feel that over time each group has improved a whole lot. The music has really improved a lot for many of the groups. There are some groups that are almost unrecognizable right now, especially when it comes to the vocal performances, but somehow, I don't understand what happened, and really how the SideM franchise actually faded away after experiencing that high, which very few groups or very few franchises actually get to experience. But this project has so much potential to be massive, especially because it stems from the Idolmaster series, which is already massive in Japan, which is a female counterpart of these. So I feel that they should have been bigger than they are. So I don't understand what happened midway through around 2016. They faded away quite a bit. Still, they release music frequently for those of you that like their music. They have many groups that are really awesome. They have a group for almost any kind of genre or any kind of style that you like. So if you like a bit more rock, you have iJoker. If you like to have an explosive sound, you may try to check Shinsuko Hikon. If you like traditional Japanese music, you have Sai. If you like the regal vibe, you have Bite. If you like that bubbly, cutesy type, you have Mofu Mofue. You have a lot, basically, here. You have many groups to choose from. They have different concepts, different music genres, sometimes different approaches to pop music, although most of them perform pop music. So, you don't lack variety, you don't lack quality, you just don't understand what happened to this project that was so big a couple of years ago, and right now it's a shell of itself, let's say. Still active, still releasing quality music, but no longer as big as it was in 2016, for sure. Well, this was all about the SideM franchise. I could have explored this project in massive detail, but I feel that I would take at least 4 or 5 hours to actually cover every single group, every single song that I like, and even the live performances. So I'm not going to do that, or I didn't do that in this episode, but I wanted to show you what happened to this franchise, because they have one of the most impressive, let's say, runs, but they faded away midway through. No one knows why. There were no explanations whatsoever shared. Lantis has been quite weird about it, and the project is still around, so it is not understandable that high where it came from. We all know the anime series, but we don't understand what happened afterwards. And most fans are still thinking or wondering what happened, because the project was so big back then. So yeah, I really like the SideM franchise. They have amazing songs. Mugen no Possibilities or Infinite Possibilities is my favorite song in this franchise. It is a really personal story when it comes to that song in specific, because most of you will listen to that song and that song may not mean anything to you, but for me it was motivational to know that I have infinite possibilities in my life, and that degree was only one of my things to do in life, so it actually was cathartic for me. And it kept me pumped up for the exam that I had, that final exam, and I actually graduated from law school, so that ended up being quite the awesome thing, and I do have a depth to this franchise because of that. That song motivated me in a time that I needed the most, so that's a big thing for me. Of course, for you will say that some groups actually you came across those and you find their music interesting, or you were looking for their music, or were looking for music with specific Seiyuu and you found those groups and you actually fell in love with those groups or even the franchise. So everyone has a different, let's say, origin story when it comes to liking the SideM franchise. Mine is that one. But yeah, I do find a lot of talent in this franchise. I love that they have a lot of variety, but I feel that it is a bit overkill to say 16 groups and 52 Seiyuu. That's a lot of people, that's crazy, that's insane. They have, alongside the Ensemble Stars franchise, way too many voice actors, in my opinion, to actually give a full-on show with everyone on stage. They actually have to split the shows in different days because they cannot allocate time for all the voice actors to perform live because there are too many groups. They have so many groups, you don't know where to start. They have so many songs that you will find yourself overwhelmed. Thankfully, their music is all available on streaming platforms right now, so you can check the groups and you can see from 1 or 2 songs you already know a little bit how they will sound in other songs. So if they don't click in the first song that you listen to, maybe move on to a different group and try to see if the next one actually clicks with you. You have 16 groups to check, so go ahead. It is a lot of time that you are going to spend, but good time nonetheless. And of course, I would love to know if you are a fan of the SideM franchise. If you are, which was the group that actually brought you in, or which was the Seiyuu that actually captured your attention and made you a fan of the franchise or a fan of one of the groups. If you are a fan of the franchise, which is your favorite or your favorites when it comes to the groups in the franchise? And if you have any songs that you would recommend newcomers to check, please leave those in the comments for everyone to find, because it is really awesome to share that with others and actually have people find more about the franchise that you love. Of course, please let me know all of that in the comments on YouTube, and remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of Seiyuu Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the THTFHQ's weekly male Seiyuu and music related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of Seiyuu Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.